for kids of your age to have the wherewithal to know that there's going to be a reload, or that that's what he's doing, or maybe he's, done doing what terrible things he's going to do. So you had an amazing wherewithal for a first grader.
Yeah. And I couldn't even tell you where that comes from or where I even got the idea to run out of there. But just like my gut reaction was to run. And some other kids' gut reaction was to freeze, and mine was to run. So I'm thankful that it was to run. Don't know where it came from. Don't know why, but that's just what my instinct was telling me to do, was to run.
It is the Fit for Radio podcast, and I'm your host, Drew Tiedemann, here at the beautiful Stafford Hills Club. If you haven't been here, I wish you were a member, or at least come through to visit. This place is great, saltwater pool. I just was in the new X Studios doing a brand new workout called High Rocks yesterday, and I'm going to be honest, my thighs are cooked. I woke up this morning and I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? But that's good. That means a guy who works out all the time is finding a way to attack muscles in a different way. And usually it's when I take a class that has more women in it than men. They will teach you a lesson. I mean, you try and balance like them, you do their yoga, you do the Pilates, you will get taught that there are muscles you didn't even know you had, and you can get it all here at Stafford Hills Club. Hit them up at staffordhills.com. Tell them Drew sent you for half off of your initiation. My guest today is an amazing guy. I've been just waiting for him to come on. His name is Reichen Posey. Like so many kids, he grew up in a close-knit family, loved sports, dreamed big, but on December 14th, 2012, his life changed forever when he survived one of the worst shootings in the history of our country, the Sandy Hook Elementary School tragedy. And the years that followed filled with all kinds of challenges, healing, and ultimately a new sense of purpose for Reichen. Today, he travels the country sharing his story to help others build resilience and find hope and overcome adversity. It's an honor to have him here to tell that story. Welcome to the podcast, Reichen Posey.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It's great for you to be here. Now, when people hear those two words together, Sandy Hook, it takes them immediately to a place. For people who don't know, a gunman came into a school and committed one of the most heinous crimes and killed a ton of kids, hurt a bunch more, and left a lot of families reeling in the wake of that. Now, Reichen, life for you before all of that is a completely different life. It's the life that a lot of us could say that we grew up with, growing up in Connecticut with a close-knit family and some older siblings. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I grew up in Connecticut, a close-knit family. We all, did all the things. We all played sports. We all went to school, involved in our school activities. Normal childhood. I was born in California first, and then when I was 2 years old, moved to Connecticut. Found a great school district, great community, and yeah, just the most basic childhood that you could imagine is where I was at for the first 7 years of my life.
And so you had are you the youngest of the kids in your family?
Yep, I'm the youngest. Yes, sir. So I have 3 older siblings, and I'm the baby of the family. So
I come from a 4-pack as well. Now mine were all boys, so it was a little bit of a rolling pile of dust around the house. But I was 3 out of 4, so I know what it's like to be in a busy home. But that's also kind of the excitement and the fun of it, is having a house that's got noise, and noise means life and all the things that go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all so close in age, us 4. So we're all doing things together, hanging out together. Just always something going on in our house. It was awesome. So yeah.
What was your thing when you were a kid, Reichen? What made you tick?
Yeah, so I was big into sports, but the main thing I was into, I was a big Batman fan. I love Batman. I used to watch the 50s TV show.
Like the boom, pap, wow.
Yeah, yeah. I was obsessed with that show as a kid, and anything Batman. I dress up as Batman for Halloween every year. Batman was my thing.
So, and I'll stop telling you things about myself, but just so you can know me a little bit, last year, and I'm going to text you this picture because it's super embarrassing. But my dad and I dressed up as 50s. He was Batman and I was Robin. We went all in, all the tights, all the
Oh, that's
things.
awesome.
So you've done it more than I have, but I know what it feels like
Oh yeah.
to holster up and put the tights on.
Oh, you got to do it. You got to do it at least once in your life. Yep.
There's a feeling like none other.
That's right.
Sports and Batman were your things. Like, what were the favorite type of memories before you went through what you went through, being a family in Connecticut?
Um, we went on a lot of family vacations. Always loved those. Just playing for the local flag football team made a lot of memories doing that. Um, and just hanging out as a family. It's a great community. We were always together, and there's not specific events that come to mind that I remember about my early childhood, but I just remember it being so full of activity and love and all the things that you need in a childhood, and it was picturesque for sure.
And that's the type of kind of family that is important for some of the stuff you deal with down the road because having that group, it's having your squad around you when tragedy strikes is something you don't think about when you're in happy lands, but sometimes you got to circle the wagons as a family.
100%.
Now, just it's kind of tough to get into it, but kind of walk us through. Well, actually, before we get into it, what was school like at Sandy Hook before what happened?
So Sandy Hook, it was an awesome school. My mom was really involved in the school. There was activities going on, clubs going on in that school. Very active community. School was fun. I made a lot of friends at that school. Uh, just a great community of people, and I really enjoyed kindergarten and elementary school growing up. So it was a great school, one of the best around for sure.
And my kids go to a school like that too, and it's what's funny is it's those types of schools that have that sense of security.
Hmm.
You even at the school my kids go to, you kind of can drop them off away from the door because I guess you're lulled to sleep by the sense of security.
100%. And that's what it was. We didn't even think about, locked doors or any of the physical security measures that are in place at a lot of schools now. Those things never crossed our mind. It was just because we felt like this was just a great community of people where, we had that delusion of security and that, well, nothing can ever happen here. That would never happen. So, um, you know, the physical safety part of school was never even talked about as a child.
Yeah, and so that all does change now. When tragedy strikes, you're in first grade,
Yes, sir. I was in first grade.
and it's just about to be Christmas break at this point, if I'm looking at the dates correctly.
That's
And
correct. Yep.
I guess just kind of walk me through what happened.
Yes, sir. So, um, a little prequel just for some added context. So, December 14th, 2012 was when the tragedy happened. We were already planning to move to Colorado, where I live now, on December 15th. So, December 14th was going to be my last day in Connecticut, regardless of
Wow.
what happened. So, just that for some added context. So, it started off as kind of an unusual day. I was pretty excited for school, which usually I was not excited for school as a kid. But we're going to be making gingerbread houses that day. I was pretty excited to do that. And I knew it was going to be my last day in Connecticut before we were moving to Colorado. So, last chance to say goodbye to some of my friends there before we were heading to Colorado. So, everything started off normally. We had to do our Friday news books that morning. I always hated doing those, but I knew once we are done with those, it was time for gingerbread houses. So I was excited.
Hmm.
Just as the morning was starting, and we're getting into those, I heard a loud banging sound coming from outside my classroom, and it was at this point where I wasn't too sure what was going on. My first thought was just that there was maybe construction being done on the roof. That was kind of what first went through my mind, and then after that, more loud banging sounds took place, followed by a scream. And it was at this point where we're all a little confused about what was happening. And my teacher, she went and peeked out the front classroom door, and she shut it very quickly. And she came back in our classroom, very concerned look on her face. More loud banging sounds continued to happen. And then she told us all to sit in the back of our classroom in rows. So we all sat in the back of our classroom in rows. I was in the front of these rows while this was all happening. Moments after we all sat in these rows in the back of my classroom, the gunman entered my classroom and he pointed the firearm just inches away from all of our faces there sitting in the front row.
Did you have a
And
clue that was happening before he walked through the door? Did she give you any hint that that could be what was going to walk in there?
no, I had no idea. All she said was, as long as we're all together, we'll be okay. That's all she told us. And, the last thing that crossed my mind was that anything like this was happening. As a 7-year-old kid, what could possibly be going wrong right now?
Yeah.
So did not know this was happening. And even when he came into my classroom, I still wasn't sure the purpose of him being there. Uh, and then, so after he pointed the gun at all of our faces and sitting in the front row, he turned and he shot my teacher, and then another one of my classmates after that. And it was at this point where I knew the reality of the situation, and I knew what was happening, and the class just became an absolute frenzy. Some kids froze, some kids were just running around, but everyone, it was chaos in that classroom at this point. And I knew that the gunman had to reload. So the gunman was reloading at this point, and I saw that the door behind him where he came in was still open. So I thought to myself, I was like, if I want to make it out of here, my only option is to run out of this classroom. So
Is he reloading a rifle or a pistol, or what does he have?
it was an AR-15, I believe is what it was.
Okay.
So
So
it
an
was
assault rifle.
exact 100%. Yep, that's what it was. So he was reloading that, and I saw my opportunity, and I signaled to everybody that I could that we had to run, and I ran out of my classroom and ran to safety.
So how many people were able to get out of there? The majority of that room?
So I ran with 9 others, or excuse me, 8 others. So me and 8 others ran out of the classroom, and then there were a few more survivors in that classroom that hid in the bathroom in that classroom. So a few more survivors, but also we lost a few more in that classroom as well. But I ran out with 8 other people.
Did you run straight out of the building, or where did you head straight out the door?
Yeah, so we headed straight out the door. We ran past the broken glass that he shot to get into the school, and we ran out. There's a volunteer firehouse like right next to our school, so we ran to that. Didn't seem like anyone was there, so we kept running,
Mhm.
and we ultimately kept running till we were stopped by an off-duty bus driver and her daughter that was on a walk. She stopped us all, and we
She's
all
probably
sat.
thinking, what is this?"
Exactly. She just dropped off a bunch of kids at Sandy Hook Elementary School for the day. So she's like, "What are they doing, running, screaming right now? This doesn't make any sense." So she stopped
Yeah.
us all, and we all sat in a circle on a lawn, this random house's lawn. And the owner of that house came out and he invited us into his house, and um, that's where kind of our reunification was for us. 9 kids was in that house, and that's where ultimately my mom came and picked me up from, was that house.
So you stayed there until then. When you get sat down in that lawn, because that's probably a very chaotic moment, running to there and then sitting down, and then before they can bring you into the house, do you? And I know you're still young there, but this has been kind of ingrained into your mind. Are you registering the levity of what you just witnessed, or does it feel like a Batman episode almost?
It does. I'm not registering it completely. I know what I saw, and we're screaming to every car that's driving by, like what just happened in our classroom. All of us kids, we're screaming at everyone we see. We know what we saw, but it's not registering to me what is the levity, like you said, of the situation. So it really wasn't. But I knew that really the only thing on my mind at this time was my sister, one of my older sisters, also went to Sandy Hook Elementary School at the same time I did.
Hmm.
And I was just worried about her. And based on what I saw take place, I didn't think that she was okay. So this
What
whole time
grade
I was worried
was?
about my sister.
Sorry, what grade was your sister in?
She was in 4th grade at the time. Hmm.
And proximity to the room you were in, grade schools are much smaller, so they're not that many rooms away. It's a one
Yeah.
hallway turn, and you're likely there, right?
No, she was pretty close to my room. It wasn't too far away. But what ended up happening to her is she was in an art classroom, and her art teacher had an office in that classroom, so they were all behind the art teacher's locked office door the whole time.
Mm.
So, but it was not too far from where my classroom was.
Now, your mom, because, as a parent, I have 3 daughters, and there's been some lockdowns and stuff and mostly it's just precautionary because of things like what have happened to you. And oh my goodness, the feeling in your gut when you don't even know anything's happened. How did she hear about it? Because it is, in a cell phone era, so it's a quick moving operation. How did she hear about it, and what did
Mhm.
she do?
So my one of my best friends who I ran out of my classroom with into that house, he called
Hmm.
his dad to let him know where we were, and then his dad let my mom know that him and I were at this yellow house. So that's how she found out where I was, and then she came and grabbed me from there. So it was through that is where she found out.
Okay. And so is she when she gets to you, what's her demeanor like? Is she staying calm for you? Is she out of her mind? I mean, I don't even know how I would act.
Yeah, she's staying calm because she picked up my sister at the firehouse first. That's where everyone was at the firehouse. So she picked my sister up from there, and then my mom and my sister came to the yellow house where I was at. And to me, it just looked like she was relieved to have her 2 kids that attended Sandy Hook back together. And she was calm, and she knew that, the most important thing is having us safe, and that's what she had at that point. So she was definitely staying calm and composed for my sake, I think. So,
That was mighty brave of you guys to bolt for the door in the first
mhm.
place. I mean, you think about every time you've been in shock. I mean, there's other times where you fail to move for a minute, right? And you didn't have any time for that. And for kids of your age to have the wherewithal to know that there's going to be a reload, or that that's what he's doing, or maybe he's, done doing what terrible things he's going to do. So you had an amazing wherewithal for a first grader.
Yeah, and I couldn't even tell you where that comes from or where I even got the idea to run out of there, but just like my gut reaction was to run, and some other kids' gut reaction was to freeze, and mine was to run. So I'm thankful that it was to run. Don't know where it came from, don't know why, but that's just what my instinct was telling me to do, was to run.
So after the incident, people are going to the firehouse to get their kids, and this is a terrible time too, because not everybody's kids are at the firehouse. And luckily for you and your family and for all your loved ones, you were at the yellow house. But for the people who didn't make it to either and ended up as a tragic victim in all of this stuff, was that stuff transpiring in front of you guys, or were they able to kind of usher you out of there in a timely manner, or were you seeing families get shattered in real time?
Yeah, so after we were at the Yale House, we did go to the firehouse, my mom, my sister, and I, and firehouse was absolute chaos. There was nobody knew what was going on. But yeah, it was we were there for a while, and we did see, you know, families get pretty shattered, and some terrible news take place. So that did happen while we were there, and it was just terrible to see the. I mean, I'll always never forget the looks on some of those parents' faces when I was at the firehouse. It was just terrible.
Yeah, and there's no consoling them there when and after you get through those types of moments, right? At some point, I'm guessing people are either asked to disperse or disperse naturally. Going home after that, even the comfort of that seems eerie to
Yeah,
me. The
yeah.
silence of your own home after the chaos.
No, it was weird. It was weird going home because I still thought the gunman was after me when I went home. I didn't know that he had killed himself a long time ago. I thought he was still after me. Even at home, I was still scared that he was after me. And very you could hear helicopters outside of our house when we were at home. Just very eerie, and I was still scared, really scared.
Yeah, and I think it's very understandable. I mean, this guy, I mean, even the look on his face in a picture, it was frightening.
Hmm.
he had a scary look to him, almost like a horror film. So for you to live in that and then see that face, it would be chasing me too. I never think it's a good idea for people to die, but at least him being gone is there's a peace there that at least that evil isn't chasing a little boy who doesn't understand that he was that you were just another number on a card to him.
Right, exactly. So if I knew that information that he was gone, definitely would have calmed my fear a lot. But I thought he was
Hmm.
still after me for sure.
Did you sleep at all that night?
No,
You do.
I honestly I don't remember anything from that night at all. I remember we picked up my dad. So my dad was in Colorado during this. He was getting our new house ready. So I remember picking up my dad from the airport that night, and then uh, I don't remember anything else after that, to be honest.
Hmm. And that's also got to be so frightening for your dad. Even the call has got to be confusing because you're one day away from being in the safety of Colorado, and all of that happened. I want to get into though a little bit what happens after that because I think that's an important part of your story. The Fit for Radio podcast is brought to you by Motorsport Hillsboro. And I'm telling you every week, but they are going to run out of these epic gas electric mountain bikes, and it's going to happen before you get a chance to get this killer discount. We're talking up to 60% off on these bikes, and if you've ridden anything like it, they will change the way that you mountain bike. You'll go farther, you can go up hills that you never thought you could get up, and really conquer the part of the trail that seemed like it was too far and too hard for you. So what do? Just go into Motorsport Hillsboro and check out the Gas G-Lite Trail 2.0 e-bikes, and these are on another level, lightweight frame, powerful motor, and they will conquer the trail. And it is a limited supply. They bought them all up just to give you that sweet deal. So get there, get it done. Check out their inventory of everything they have to offer at motorsporthillsboro.com. The Fit for Radio podcast also brought to you by Axiom Plumbing, Sewer, and Septic. These guys know everything that has to do with water and waste, and any job, they got you covered in the Portland and Vancouver area. Nothing too big or too small for these guys. And don't forget to say that Drew sent you for 10% off or $500 off a water heater. I trust these guys so much that I handed their phone number to my own father. So get on it, get what's fixed, get something fixed that you're probably like, well, I'm just not budgeted for that. You're hearing that drip. You know that leak is there. Get out in front of it while you can. And there's no one better to do it with than Bruce and the gang over at AxiomPDX.com. That's the website. Axiom Plumbing, Sewer, and Septic. They know everything water and waste. So you guys were still scheduled to move to Colorado. Like the move was imminent at this point. You've already got the house and everything. Because this happened, I'm guessing you don't leave the next day. What happens to the family timeline as you're now left to pick up the pieces after a tragedy like that?
So, fun fact, we actually did leave the next day.
You
So
did.
we did.
See
We
there, I
did.
am leading you to water, and I'm completely wrong.
No, we did. I know it sounds crazy. Like, how could you all get on a plane and leave the next day? But we did, and we left the next day. Don't couldn't tell you a single thing about that plane ride the next day. But we left the next day, and then we went back to Connecticut briefly to just grab some stuff to move to Colorado. But really, December 15th was the day we left. We left Newtown and we left Sandy Hook behind.
So you weren't there because for months and years. I mean, there's probably still a vigil there somewhere, or at least a tribute to those people. But I guess it's like a double-edged sword. Like on one end, you didn't mourn with those people, but also on the other side, and this sounds a little shallow, but you didn't dwell with them either. You went to and like a lot of parents probably were like, we can't be here. And
Mhm.
so like we're already scheduled to go. But what was your thought on being there versus not being there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was a double-edged sword. It was really nice to be in a new community that hadn't been affected by tragedy, and that had the resources to support us. But at the same
Hmm.
time, it was tough leaving behind all of our friends and that community as well, who was mourning and who was needing a lot of support. But us as a family, we weren't in a position to support anyone at that time. We needed to be supported, and I think moving to Colorado enabled us to find the right support systems and really start our healing journey.
Because we did have a similar tragedy. Actually, one of the first, if not the first, school shooting happened just south of here near the University of Oregon, where a guy did the same thing. Actually, killed his parents and went to the school and opened fire. And the effect it has on the community and how long people are there and a part of that is I know people who I met, I wasn't at that school, but who I met later in life who that's still like it's still the narrative and it's still talked about. And I think that it's healthy to get away from it and to try and find a way from it. But
Mhm.
I don't think there's one blueprint probably for all that.
No, I mean, it really just depends on the family. A lot of people did stay in Connecticut, and where they're at today it differs based on just the family and who they are. But definitely for our family, the best thing was moving to Colorado.
So when you get to Colorado, because you're always like sports and Batman and things like that, are you able to, because it's there's no just like one way ticket back to it being normal. Are you able to kind of like lock into that stuff, or are you immediately in a bad spot?
Yeah, so right after moving to Colorado, our whole family was kind of in a state of shock. We didn't really know what just happened. We didn't know how damaged we really were. So we just tried to get back to doing everything we were doing in Connecticut, go sign us up for sports, go back to church, go back to school, all the things we were doing. We just thought that we would just do it again. And we
Yeah.
found out very quickly that that was not going to work. I was not able to even leave the front door for 6 months just because I was scared of the world. And I was a pretty damaged little kid, and I was definitely not even close to the same kid as I was before. So Batman and sports, all that was kinda out the window.
So because you're just if you leave December 15th, by the time Christmas happens, it's supposed to be time to go back to school.
Mhm.
Are you able to go or are you holding on to that door jam?
Yeah, so going back to school was by far the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. Um, and it was tough. I wasn't able to just immediately go back to school. It took me so Sandy Hook was in 1st grade. I couldn't sit through a full day in school until about 5th grade again. So it took me about 4 years to be able to go to school and actually sit through the entire school day without needing a break, without needing to go home, without needing to go take a walk or something like that. So, going back to school was a challenge, and it has been a challenge for my whole schooling career, just because facing the setting in which the worst tragedy of my life happened.
Yeah, so were you homeschooled during that or are they allowing you to do kind of a hybrid at the school?
So I would just went in person to school. So I went back to 1st grade, so the second half of my 1st grade year, and uh, I missed a lot of the things that you do in school. Like I wasn't able to take the tests or do the assignments. Uh, the purpose of me going back to school was just to try to build up my social skills again, try to build up, kind of a semblance of the kid that I used to be. It wasn't for academic purposes anymore. It was just to um, try to face the fear that was within me and I guess get my life back up and running again because our whole family was pretty decimated. So we had to try to find some sort of routine, get back into something the best that we could.
Mhm. And it's for like you said, all families in this tragedy, it ends up different based on family and just luck, right? Like how your mind's able to cope. Sometimes you could be a great person and it's just too much. And you could have been crippled out right there and not been able to regain your footing. But when I sit down with you, like even when you and I talked on the phone the other day, you you have a sense of strength about you now. So things obviously you go about a battle here. Are you having to see? I mean, because I would guess I would have to see a counselor. I would have to be, like going through all kinds of therapy in order to maybe regain my footing. Did you go that route?
Yeah, so I see the same counselor. I've seen him for 13 years now. Uh, we saw him, I think, a month after the tragedy. I actually moved to Colorado, and I've seen him regularly now for 13 years. So that was definitely huge necessary step for us and for me in my recovery journey.
That's lucky to have the same counselor too, because you guys can kind of work a game plan together.
Exactly.
Whether it's how do I do the school thing, how do I work on my social skills. Now you are a football player, or you played some ball as well. I know that also was something that helped you. When did you actually find your way onto a football field?
Yeah, so that was probably about second grade is when I really started picking up football. And it was just anything surrounding football was my coping mechanism. That's how, if I was throwing a football around, all the terrible thoughts and images from Sandy Hook just went away. So my parents would just be sitting on the couch one day and I'd just be throwing them the football all day because that's the only way that I could move on and think about other things was through football. That was my true coping mechanism, and that lasted me all the way up through high school. That was kind of what I fell back on when I was having a tough day. It's like let me go play some football.
Hmm. Did you find a like was there a like after you got to like fifth grade where you said you started to kind of be able to sit through a class? Does it Is there ever a time where it starts to become easier, or are you always like having to go through the thoughts?
Yeah, no, it becomes easier over time, and it gives you a new perspective to where uh, you're able to overcome it. You have to make the choice to overcome what you're going through every single day, and that choice becomes easier over time. And it's not something that will ever leave me. Sandy Hook and the trauma that I face from it, it'll be with me forever. But it definitely becomes easier to overcome it and to grow from it for sure.
Hmm. Now, as you move forward, you're kind of getting through school. What's high school like? Are you a loner? Do you know other people? I mean, it's a good question because it could go multiple ways. It could be you could be shy and timid because of this. You could be lashing out because of this. I could name 1,000 things that you could blame Sandy Hook for. So,
100%.
what was your journey like?
Yeah, so high school was kind of a turning point in my life. Elementary school and middle school had a really hard time making friends, just because I thought that if I made friends, that they were just I was going to lose them because the last friends that I had, I lost at Sandy Hook. So I thought that if I made friends, that they'd be gone. So I didn't want to make friends. I didn't try to make friends, and high school was kind of that turning point because high school I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision if I was going to be looked upon as an object of pity for the rest of my life, or if I wanted to use this thing to help me to grow stronger. I didn't want people feeling sorry for me. I don't want people looking at me like, "Oh, poor Reichen, look what he has to go through." So I made the choice in high school that I'm going to share my story with others, and tell them that I'm not using this tragedy. This doesn't define me, but I'm going to define who I am by how I respond to it. And that's what high school was for me. And I started making friends. I started sharing my story. I started connecting with people and trying to give this image of I'm trying to overcome this rather than letting this tragedy define me. So that's what high school is really all about for me.
And it's actually the mission statement of my life and this show is that it isn't always about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to the things that happen to you. I mean, we have all could point to things that happen that are terrible and that you would do anything to have them go away, but you can't make them go away by sulking in it.
Hmm.
And I I love that about you. That you found a way to kind of like step up on the rock and be like, no,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna do this. So
Yeah.
how do you get started like in that lane where you're going to kind of give back instead of fall back?
It's tough. It's tough because there's a large part of my life where I was just trying to survive the day. And I had to figure out how I was going to take this surviving mindset and turn it into where I'm now thriving. and that was
Mm-hmm.
tough. It was tough to do. But what really helped me was the relationships that I was able to build through this tragedy, the people that helped me along the way, uh, the people I met, and just building these relationships with like-minded people who are going to tell you when it's time for you to push through, or tell you that you need to be doing better, or hold you accountable if you're sulking or something like that. Right? It's these
Mm-hmm.
people and these relationships that really push me from that state of being in that victim mindset and push me away from that towards all right, this happened to me, there's nothing I can do about it, but how am I going to respond to this and make it a positive thing?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, it happened to a little boy. And, like, there's no shame in the game of having to work through all that, right? Because if that happened to any little kid, it's what made it so bad is because it's happening. I mean, it's always bad, but it's the worst to happen to the pinnacle of innocence. A child in first grade, I love kids at that age. Like, there's nothing has jaded them yet.
Hmm.
They're like a clean coffee filter. They're
Yeah.
not to be messed with. And,
Hmm.
for you to have to work your way back from that, there's no shame in that because that's a little boy getting destroyed by an animal. You decided to act like an adult as you started to grow, as you're going into the grow up age, 14 to 18 is when you're becoming a man, and you took the bull by the reins. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of when you had to do it, because if it went any farther, then you really get in your feelings about it. Because you were able to separate that happened to me, but this kid, and now this man is going to respond to it.
Exactly.
And I
And that's
think
what it's all about. Yeah.
it is what it's all about. So what was the plan? Because you wanted to start speaking on this. Did you start doing that immediately? How did you go about telling your tale?
Yeah. So again, about high school was when I started sharing my story with other people outside of like my family and my friends, because I would share my story and every single detail with my parents like every single day when I was in elementary school. I would talk about it every single day. And it wasn't until high school when I started sharing my story with other people. And the reason I started sharing my story with other people was because it helped me to talk about it. It helped me to get it out and to share what I was feeling, share what I was going through. But also what it did is it enabled others to share their story with me, and it gave me some perspective, because there's been a lot of times in my life where I'm like, I feel like I'm alone in going through these hard things, and no one else is going through anything hard. It's just me. And when I
Mhm.
shared my story, these people are telling me all these terrible things that they're going through as well. And it builds that community, it builds that perspective that, man, we're all going through something and we all have each other to help us through this. And that's what sharing my story did for me, was giving me some perspective that everyone's going through something.
And I think that is an important point, because a lot of us, we put up a shield in order to live day by day, and the older you get, you're guaranteed tragedy, not in the form that you have dealt with it in like a hyper second, and at such a young age, but we're all going to experience loss when it's not fair and not right. And I've been there multiple times, but I also can't wear that right here on my face, because if I
Hmm.
do, then it constantly resurfaces, and but it's also, to your point, it's not fair to yourself to bottle it up. So I
Hmm.
think you found a path here to where you're not turning into a really hot tea kettle that's about to spout off, but you find you do find a way to work through it.
100%. 100%. That's what it's all about, is finding that balance between letting it, becoming the victim and having that victim mindset through it, and also not bottling it up as well and trying to act like you're fine and nothing happened. So it is that balance. And, it wasn't, my journey wasn't, easy. It wasn't, I made all sorts of mistakes in my life too, as well. And it's just each mistake that you do make, or each time you mess up, it's just how you respond. And
Hmm.
and that's what it's all about. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without all the wonderful relationships that I made. So
Plus, let's just be honest, Riken. People who don't have never messed up, they're not as seasoned as a human. Like when you screw up, it's actually a life lesson, and it makes life a little bit you're just a deeper person because of it. So every time you screw up and then you recover from it and you do the right thing, I always just feel like that makes you a little less boring. Not a
Hmm.
reason to mess up again, but
Yeah,
it's what makes us human is that we do make mistakes, but it's like you say, how you come back from it. Now, I want to
100%.
get in with you. I want to talk to you a little bit about, kind of life after high school because you do end up going to college and doing a bunch of stuff. The Fit for Radio podcast is brought to you by Axiom Plumbing, Sewer, and Septic. All things water and waste. Any job in the Portland or Vancouver area, they're the ones for it. And what I love about it is Bruce, the owner of Axiom, is born and raised in the Portland area. And he is a real person. Owner, operator, no private equity. They're doing it to it. AxiomPDX.com. Of course, tell him Drew sent you for 10% off any service for new customers with the promo code DREW. On top of that, you can give him a call, 971-431-4810, or hit him up on their website, AxiomPDX.com. And don't forget to tell him that Drew sent you. The Fit for Radio podcast is also brought to you by Motorsport Hillsboro, where right now up to 60% off of those gas electric mountain bikes. And as soon as I hopped on it, the pedal assist on there, something I'm just not used to. I've always had the old school bike, and it just allowed me to go a little bit faster, get up those hills a little bit quicker, and without sweating. You get so exhausted and you're like almost need to change your clothes at the top of the hill. Well, not with the gas electric mountain bikes. And the inventory is starting to close out. So you want to get down there and get it while you can. Lightweight frame, powerful motor, built for the trails. So if you want to get out there and you want to change your summer, hit them up at motorsporthillsboro.com. Check out their inventory of the electric mountain bikes and everything else where they have the easiest and best financing at Motorsport Hillsboro. Because you kind of built yourself up in high school and decided you were going to take the bull by the horns. What's the next chapter look like for you? Because did you go to college right away or did you wait? What did you do?
Yeah, I went to college right away, and I'm pursuing a degree in business right now. So I'm entering my junior year in college, pursuing a degree in business. And just recently, I've started to take my story and shared it to various audiences around the country, like school safety conferences or in front of law enforcement, in front of teachers and stuff like that. And I've been doing that recently as well. So, and it's been awesome to go around and share my story with anybody and everybody, because I think it's valuable to be able to talk about these things and be vulnerable and hopefully keep making schools safer. That's what I've been up to. Yeah.
So when it comes to that, I'm curious, because at my kid's school, you have double doors. I mean, I'm not going to give all the security away, but there's multiple layers to get in. You got to get past a layer, and then you got to get past another layer where people can see you and they can buzz you in. Are you seeing the changes that are necessary? Does it still seem vulnerable? Because I believe they call a school a soft target, right? Because it's not like an airport where you have to really fight to get through security. I mean, even in your scenario, almost every school is compromised by a gunman shooting through a window.
Hmm.
And so that's going to be a problem every time. And
Hmm.
so what is the plan moving forward? Because there is no easy fix. You can't just remodel every school tomorrow.
Yeah. I think it's important to talk about physical safety in school, and I've seen a lot of progress in that. Like most schools now will have locked doors or doors that automatically lock. No gunman has ever breached a locked classroom door before, so I think that's super important. The middle school that I went to had bulletproof glass, so it kind of negated that issue as well. But ultimately, there's only so much you can do from a physical safety sense. Like if someone really, really wants to get in somewhere, they can find a way to do that, and that's just with anywhere, right? So, but I do think that's important, but also uh, fostering that culture and that emotional safety as well, and building a community that uh, that cares and that talks about these things and that identifies a kid that may be struggling or may
Hmm.
show some signs of some of those kind of things. So it's all these levels of safety that we need to talk about, and it'll never be good enough, but got to keep getting better.
Yeah, the school that they built right up the street that my oldest, is going to go to, the middle school, it made
Hmm.
national news for its safety and building new schools. I do think there's a ton we can do where you have different parts of the school that kids can get to for safety, or locking doors that, a kid or a gunman wouldn't know how to get in or out of. There's so many different things along those lines. So I am on board with that. I think that in the future we'll be able to really change it. But it's the older schools that I worry about, and it's the big thing that you said, the communication, the knowing what kid's having trouble, which kid is. There's issues at home that are boiling over at school. They're making threats. They've got dangerous drawings. I mean, I could give you a laundry list.
Hmm.
It's so important, and then to discuss with those parents and with the teachers and find a way to stop it before it starts. My question for you is, do schools actively doing active shooter drills the way that they do fire and earthquake?
Um, no, they're not. I mean, schools do lockdown drills, but there's no active shooter drills. I mean, there's some that do that, like some companies that go in and do it for a school or something like that, but it's not a routine or a normal thing.
Because that feels like something that could happen more often at a private school or something along those lines. But it's a slippery slope, though, because, on one hand, I'm saying, we'll tell these kids that this could happen. On the other hand, I'm like, well, that really frightens them.
Hmm.
And they have that the part of a child that's the best that I said earlier is the innocence. So how do we maintain the innocence at the grade school level, which you dealt with firsthand? That's the tough part. Is I want them to feel safe. I want
Hmm.
them to think that they're still in a magical world where they don't know anything about violence or politics or any of the other things in life that can bog us down. I just prefer that safety, but also there comes an age where I start to warn them about strangers and about, don't be walking down that street alone or you could get kidnapped, because you have to say those things to them to scare them straight, quote unquote. What,
Hmm.
what's your stance on what we tell them?
It's tough, and there's a balance to it for sure. And I don't know if I know the exact answer, but you can't be afraid to tell them some things and tell them some realities of this world, because that's, like you said, that's how they learn. But at the same time, we don't want to frighten them so much where they're scared to come to school the next day.
Hmm.
So maybe that looks like not calling it an active shooter drill, maybe just an active threat
Lockdown.
drill, like a
Well,
lockdown or something like that, and tell them that, like, hey, there could be a bear that comes in the school. I mean, any threat at all. We had a bear come in one of our schools in Colorado. And how do you deal with that? It could be a bear, it could be, some kind of animal, it could be anything. So it's not always preparing for an active shooter. It's just, how do we just stay safe from anything? And I think framing it like that maybe could alleviate some of the fear.
yeah, and I think when I even hear you say back active shooter, like I said, it's not the term that we want to use for them. I think you're right. I think that the lockdown would be enough. And now that you mentioned it in the form of lockdown, I think I've heard my kids mutter that we did a lockdown drill. So it's probably tell them what they need to know. It's like even with your teacher in that classroom, which is, I'm still trying to register all that. But when she says, as long as we're all okay together, we'll be okay, it's her also trying to defend your little minds from whatever might be out there. And if they
Hmm.
don't come in the door, then you get to skip that part of your life. And,
Hmm.
I think that it's always going to be the slippery slope of how much do we tell and when do we tell it? And there will always be, in history, there will always be a bad guy, or there
Yep.
will always be somebody who's mentally ill. They might not
Hmm.
even know what they're doing, but there's
Hmm.
always going to be something like that. So I think the work that you're doing is important. And
Yeah.
the more you tell your story and the more you push the conversation, the more it's going to make change. And really, all it takes is one of these things where you go to a police conference and they put in a protocol that stops one shooter, and you've succeeded.
Yeah, for sure. And that's all I can ask for is, you know, you never know what you prevent from happening. That information is known to you, but that's not why you do it. You do it so that you can prevent things, hopefully. And just like you said, preventing one incident is a success. So anything that I can do to just share my experiences to help other people, so they can learn, that's all I ask for. That's all you can ask for.
And the other thing that you mentioned when we talked before the podcast that stayed with me is not just the person that you will likely save from a tragedy, the person who is going through what you've been through. You know, somebody and it doesn't have to be a school incident. It could be as simple as they watched their dad get hit by a car. Like the type of tragedies that happen all across this world every single day put people into a funk, and they put them
Mhm.
into a place where they feel like there's no way back from it. What would you
Mhm.
say to the kid who's clinging to the door frame, say third grade? They can't get back. They don't see the end of it. You know, they might not be that age anymore, but that feeling where you were before you turned the corner, what do you say to that person who feels like there's no hope?
Um, that's tough because I would just say to them that it's going to be okay, and it may not feel like that right now, and you don't have to be okay right now. But there is hope, and there is all you got to do is just wake up and make the next right decision, and that's all you got to worry about. Don't look too far in the future. Don't try to predict what your life is going to be like 10 years from now. Just wake up every day, make the next right choice, find the relationships, find those people that you feel comfortable with, that you feel safe with, and just and rely on them and build these strong relationships and let them guide you through this. And that's the most important thing. And finding those things that you can use to help you cope, and finding the things that you enjoy doing, and take advantage of those things, and do those things. That's the best I could offer to anybody who's going through anything.
Yeah, and you're a product of what you regularly do. You know, if you keep being positive, you keep pushing forward, eventually that old version of you, it doesn't go away. It never goes away, but it fades into the background. You know, like the
Hmm.
laziest version of me is back there. I remember the guy, but
Hmm.
I can't go hang out with that dude. So
Hmm.
it's the same thing with your mental health. Just keep pushing forward, and one day you look up and you're like, "Well, that is a beautiful sunset." And it's no
Exactly.
longer right in front of you.
Hmm.
If I were to ask you, where are you at in 10 years? What are you doing?
Uh, Great question. 10 years, hopefully, I'm continuing to go around and speak to these various audiences, and hopefully making school safer. Hopefully, I have a family going on, and just hopefully I'm at a spot where um, I'm still growing, and that growth doesn't stop, and I'm still moving forward and still trying to become a better man, a better Christian, a better husband, a better father, a better brother, all those things. So hopefully that's where I'm at in 10 years.
Well, I'm guessing that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. From what I gather from your family, it's a great family, close knit situation. It's what it requires to live through a tragedy and come out on the other end. So one day when that family is there and you have a couple little nuggets running around, I'm sure you'll do just fine. It has been
Thank
an
you.
absolute pleasure to have you
Yes,
on here
sir.
today.
Yes, sir.
So if people want to keep up with you, what are you going to do? You're going to write a book? Or are you going to do more public appearances? Are you going to do a school tour?
It's a
What's
great, yeah. I thought about writing a book, so maybe that's in my future. Uh, Definitely,
it'd give you a vehicle to spread your message as well. And somebody
exactly.
should pay you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Buy that
yeah,
book. Buy
yeah.
Reichen
That's no, that'd
Posey's
be
book.
cool. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be too. I would not hate that at all. But hopefully, write a book at some point, and then just continuing to go on around the country to different conferences, different schools, speak in front of students, in front of anybody, and speak on what I went through, and how to overcome it.
Awesome. Well, if there's ever anything we can do for you, let us know, Reichen. Reichen Posey is an inspiration, the comeback kid, and now spreading his message all over the place. So stay in touch. I'd love to hear where you end up in that 10 years. All right, bud?
Yes, sir. Will do. Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers. Have a great day.
You too.
And a special thanks to the Stafford Hills Club, where I record each and every one of the podcast episodes. And now they have just released Studio X. I took the class here at Stafford Hills, the official High Rocks training club, a new era of training for you. High Rocks, power, endurance, foundations, it's all there. Drop-in rate just $25 per class for members or non-members. And member pre-sale rate, though, $95. Unlimited classes for you a month. And just a big-time situation over there. All kinds of stuff you're not used to doing in a workout. I learned the hard way that I need to expand my horizons when it comes to my workouts, and they're doing it right there at Studio X at Stafford Hills Club. Hit them up today at staffordhills.com. Tell them Drew sent you for half off your initiation.